Hey, what's up everybody, this is Muth24, and today I'm going to be taking a look at the Medicos Super Action Statue Series figures for both the Dio Brando and the World, his stand. Like with the Jojo figure review, I'm going to refer to the little stand here as the action base, just so it doesn't get confusing. But taking a look at the box art here, I thought when I got these figures they'd have like matching colors for the stands and for the characters that they're associated with, but it turns out that that's not actually the case. Dio's here is obviously more of like a gold yellow, turning to sort of that brown color down at the bottom, whereas the World's is more of like a tan color, turning to a darker brown as it goes down, which is kind of cool. I think it's nice that they have different box art for every single character, or at least different colors for each character. Much like with Jotaro, the box for Dio is significantly larger than the box for the World. I found with the other Stardust Crusaders characters that it's not exactly the case. The only other one that has a big box is Avdol. The rest of them are all really small boxes because they don't come with quite as many accessories. So, around the side here on Dio's box, we have a nice little shot of Dio Brando. And then on the back, we have a bunch of poses of him. It might be kind of hard to see just because it's a yellow character on a yellow background. But we have him with his knives there. We have him just kind of standing, one with the street sign torn out of the ground, one of them pointing, and then some different faces, hands, accessories, etc. Same thing on the other side as we had on the first. Take a look at the World's box. There's a look at the World. Bunch of fighting poses and like a pointing pose there. His two different heads, his different hands, the action base that he comes with, and again the same thing on that side there. So taking a look at the figure for both Dio and the World, it's pretty obvious. It might not be the easiest to tell with the light coming down here, but when you see it in person, it's pretty obvious like how different their colors are. They're both yellow, obviously, but the World has more of this like worn, almost dirty yellow look, like he's been hit with the sands of the desert or something like that. Looks a little bit more gritty and worn, which is really nice. Whereas Dio's yellow fabric there looks more like it's got little, I don't know, ripples here and there with the folds and all that. It looks like a cloth material, even though obviously it's not for the figure. But it's really well done, and that's one thing I said with Jotaro, is just like how careful the attention to detail in these figures has been overall. I've been really impressed with that. The paint apps are great on Dio. You have sort of the shiny gold for his boots here on his feet, if I can lift him up. As well as the little bands around his arm there. You got some green on his belt and on his headband and his kneecaps there. And in some parts it's more of a shiny green, in other parts it's more of a flat green. But I think the differentiation there adds to the overall attention to detail and the quality and just the general look of this character. The black underneath looks really great. His hair looks fantastic. His eyebrows and everything on his face is very well done. As for the World, you have, like I said, more of a dull look to it, but I think it works very well. You also have that nice gray underneath, a little bit of shiny paint on the knuckles there. In terms of Dio's posability, you can get the head to go up and down. You can see the necklace is actually a separate piece there. There's one thing you have to be careful about when you switch the heads out, is to not lose that. But you can rotate it side to side a decent amount, and actually you can probably get to go 360 there as long as the hair is up and over the collar. You can get the arms to rotate 360 no problem, get them to go out about that far, get the elbows to bend, pretty decent there. The wrist, obviously you can wiggle it back and forth, rotate it around no problem. The torso, you can lean side to side there, back and forth, and then he can rotate 360 technically because there's a double joint there. Then you have the belts, which will go up and down to give him some more, like, I don't know, action-intense poses. The legs can go up about that far, back about that far before they start rotating on their own. Can go out about that far. Can bend at the knee. You can get the ankles to go back and forth. Can rotate those around 360 no problem, and then you have a little bend there at the toe. And because he doesn't have much restrictive parts in terms of his sculpt here, the World's posability is pretty similar. You can get his head to go back and forth there. You can get it to rotate above the neck there, but if you push too hard, the bottom of the neck might pop out. And the chin does kind of bump against the shoulder pieces here, the big shoulder pads, and the just neck in general. You can get the arms to go up and down, get them to rotate 360 no problem. Bend at the elbow, not nearly as far as Dio's just because of the big muscle mass there. You can get the wrists to rotate just fine, they can wobble back and forth and all that. You can get the torso to bend back and forth. You can rotate them 360 at the waist, no problem. Get the legs to wiggle back and forth like that. Forwards, backwards. These little hip pieces do move, but there's no real point to them because they're just going to rotate around like that. Knees will bend just fine. Ankles will go back and forth, will rotate around a little bit, and then the toes again will go up and down. One of Dio's more iconic poses is to have all of his knives out there, and you do get 2 extra hands that are already holding a bunch of knives in either side, so you can have them, looking real intimidating there with those. You also get an extra set of just free-floating knives here in this baggie. I'm a little hesitant to actually pull them out of there because I don't want to lose them, but they show on the box art that you can stick those in his belt if you want to, and you do get 6 of those. Then you have an extra set of sort of open palm splayed hands there. You get an extra set of sort of relaxed palm hands. You get a set of closed fists, punching hands. And then you get some sort of odds and ends hands here. You get sort of the pinching hand, like with Jojo, he uses it to hold the brim of his hat. Not sure what it is for on Dio, but you get one of those anyways. You get the pointing hand, the sort of crazy fingers hand, and then you get actually 2 of these. They are open fist hands, and they are used to hold the giant street sign, which is a pretty big accessory, all things considered. You actually have to build this when it comes to the box. There's a couple separate pieces there, but it looks really cool with all the weathering effects there, little scratches on it, and the bend at the bottom. And then you also get 2 extra heads. The one that he has on is like his open mouth, sort of like taunting face. Then you get sort of a relaxed face, and then sort of a slight grin on his face. And actually, I think I did those backwards. This is the relaxed face. This is the one with the slight grin on it, and I don't know how much you can tell there. They're very similar. The only difference is like the direction of the eyebrows and the mouth. Now, when I went to go build the world, as it were, because you do have to put a couple pieces on them, the only thing that I had to really attach were these little backpack pieces here. They're almost like scuba tanks. There's some small pegs that stick into the back there. The only thing is the body of the world is a lot more thick and like hard plastic than those pegs are. This is like a softer, more rubbery plastic. So you're going to kind of have to be careful when you're putting those pieces in to not bend them or force it too hard, because the little peg there is going to wear if you're not careful. It'll wear really fast that way. So once you get them in there, it should be fine. They do have a tendency to kind of rotate around a little bit there, but for the most part, they should be okay. But as far as the other accessories you get with him, I showed off the sort of action yelling face there. I switched up his hands here. He's got the pointing finger on one hand and the fist on the other one. You do get a separate fist hand. And then you get a set of sort of open palm hands here. And all of them have sort of the shiny gold knuckles there and the little world symbol there on the back of the gloves. And then you get a separate head where it's just sort of a relaxed face with him just having a stern pose there. As with Jojo, you do get an action base for each character, and they are able to separate. So where you would normally get the peg piece on one side and then the sort of just basic empty piece on the other side, I've opted to make one of the action bases, both empty pieces, and connect the 2 peg pieces there onto one action base to pose them together. Interestingly, with this particular figure, you get a little extension piece here for the world, so that the action base peg can go past those backpack pieces and be able to stick into the back of the figure no problem without having to bump into that stuff or have it rub against the hinge here, which is a really nice little extra thing to throw in there, I think. So at the end of the day, I'd say that this is a really nice set of figures to add to your collection. Obviously, Dio trumps the world in terms of his accessories because he's got so many of them, and both of these figures look really nice, but I do appreciate the fact that the joints on the world are hidden a little bit better than they are on Star Platinum. I mean, they're technically in the same place, but I think the paint app of the gray, being a little bit darker there, does better to hide the shoulder joints, and the fact that the sort of poofy chest armor piece there sticks over the edge just enough to hide it. There's some great differentiation with the types of paints they're using, the different colors they're using, and it adds a lot more in terms of, I guess, flash and flare to the look of these figures, which is great. I really like the way that they just look overall. The way they pose is pretty good. There's a few minor things here and there. It's like, oh, you can't get this pose quite as far as you'd like, but I think for the most part they're a pretty good set, and if you want your main villain from Stardust Crusaders with his stand, this is a pretty nice set to pick up. So with that, I will see you guys next time.